The escalator incident. In a busy shopping mall, the hum of escalators blended with chatter and footsteps. Shoppers moving up and down, rushing their way into every item on sale without giving a thought to the machinery beneath them. The moving steps chattered endlessly, the floor plates sliding in and out of the grooves, the whole system built to run seamlessly day after day. But one misstep was all it took. A man stepped too close to the edge where the escalator met the floor, and the seam that usually swallows dirt and shoelaces swallowed his entire foot. His shoe wedged deep into the gap, yanking him off balance. In an instant, the moving metal teeth sheared through leather, skin, and bone. He screamed as the escalator ground forward, tearing his foot apart with mechanical precision. The metal blades chewed upward, dragging his leg further in while he thrashed and pulled against the machine. Blood sprayed against the polished steps as veins and arteries split open, the escalator swallowing it just like it swallowed his shoe. Shoppers froze in horror. Some tried to hit the emergency stop button, but seconds dragged on like minutes. By the time the machine screeched to a halt, the man's foot was gone, his leg shredded open to the knee. The pool of blood spreading around him told the rest of the story. He wasn't going to last. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but the bleeding was too severe. Arteries severed, tissue crushed, and shock setting in. The man's body gave out before they could even move him. The ATM incident. In 2016, in India, pedestrians crowded the sidewalks near a busy shopping center. Above them, an ATM kiosk had been built into a balcony, secured with a massive concrete planter that doubled as decoration. To anyone passing by, it looked sturdy, fixed, and permanent, like it had been set there for decades. But the bolts hiding it had quietly corroded. Rainwater and years of vibrations from nearby traffic had loosened the structure just enough. That day, strong winds pushed the planter past its tipping point. In seconds, the entire block, hundreds of pounds of stone and steel, broke free and dropped onto the walkway below. A man in his 30s was directly underneath. He never saw it coming. Witnesses said he was still scrolling on his phone when the planter hit. It could have been cash that fell from above, but nope, he got flattened by the ATM instead. The weight smashed into him with the force of a wrecking ball, crushing his chest and skull instantly. By the time bystanders rushed over, there was no saving him. The mess left people shaken not just by the death, but by the randomness of it. This wasn't a traffic accident, a fight, or a fall. It was a piece of the city itself turning lethal. Investigators later determined the planter weighed over 400 pounds, enough to flatten anything in its path. The vending machine incident. This next situation unfolded in the age of smartphones, when people will climb anything, balance anywhere, and risk everything just to capture the perfect photo. A young man decided the vending machine was the stage. He scrambled up the side, wedging his sneakers into the tiny plastic ledges, one hand holding his phone high while the other pressed against the wall for balance. His friends circled below, laughing, filming, shouting for him to go higher. The machine wobbled slightly under his weight, but instead of stepping down, he grinned wider. For him, the danger was part of the spectacle. He raised the phone, lining up the perfect shot, and then came the shift. With a deep metallic groan, the machine tilted forward. It happened faster than anyone could react, several hundred pounds of steel and glass surging off balance. He tried to leap clear, but the angle betrayed him. Gravity won. The vending machine slammed down with terrifying force. The crash sent shards of glass flying and cans of soda rolling across the tiles like marbles. But the real damage was beneath. His chest buckled under the weight. Ribs snapped like dry sticks. His lungs collapsed inward, fighting for air that couldn't come. The pressure was merciless. His friends, still clutching their phones, dropped them in panic. They clawed at the edges of the machine, screaming, straining to lift it, but it wouldn't move an inch. Every second felt like an hour, the sound of fizzing soda mixing with desperate cries. By the time paramedics fought their way in, it was already over. The machine stood silent, its glowing display still lit, while beneath it lay the cost of one risky photo stunt too many. The tire rim incident. In the late 1990s, inside a small repair shop in the US, a mechanic was doing something he'd done 100 times before, inflating a truck tire, heavy, awkward, and mounted on a split rim, the kind designed to clamp the tire in place under enormous pressure. But to most people, it just looked like another day in the garage. But pressure isn't always your friend. The mechanic leaned over the tire, watching the numbers rise on the gauge, and then, without warning, the rim failed. It didn't leak, it didn't crack, it detonated. The blast was violent enough to shake the entire shop. A piece of steel rim torn free and shot upward straight into the mechanic's chest. It ripped through his ribs, shredded his lungs, and obliterated his heart in a single strike. Other fragments sprayed across the room, punching holes in walls and windows. He dropped instantly, his body collapsing before he could even take another breath. Coworkers rushed over, but there was nothing left to save, just the still form of a man cut down by what was supposed to be routine. The shop floor was littered with shards of twisted metal, the air still echoing with the thunderclap of the explosion. In the chaos of the aftermath, one detail stood out. The tire was still intact. The blast hadn't destroyed the rubber, only the rim meant to hold it together. And that was the absurd part. A man lost his life not to the tire itself, but to the metal designed to keep it safe, turned into shrapnel by pressure no one ever saw coming. The Bounce House Incident. In the early 2010s, during a summer carnival in the US, a bounce house stood inflated on a patch of grass. Its bright colors and cartoon shapes meant to scream fun, safety, and childhood joy. Parents watched, kids laughed, and the air buzzed with the sound of motors keeping the giant inflatable upright. Then, in a matter of seconds, everything turned. A gust of high wind rattled the structure, tugging at the stakes in the ground. One came loose, then another. With the air still pumping, the bounce house twisted, folding in on itself like a balloon losing shape. Inside, kids and a few adults were caught in the collapse. What had been a playground turned into a suffocating trap. Inflated vinyl walls pressed in from all sides, heavy and airless, wrapping around bodies like a plastic bag pulled tight. Screams rang out but were muffled, swallowed by the collapsing fabric. Some tried to crawl out, but the more the house sagged, the heavier it became. The blower kept hissing, feeding air into a shape that no longer held. Trapped inside, people were crushed against each other, lungs squeezed, throats burning as oxygen vanished. By the time rescuers slashed the vinyl open, several were motionless, skin blue, limbs twisted beneath the pile. The golf ball incident. At a crowded driving range in Florida, the air was heavy with humidity, the kind that warned a storm was building. Dozens of golfers lined up their stalls, swinging irons and sending balls into the gray sky. And suddenly, a bolt of lightning ripped through the clouds and struck the field. The energy didn't stop at the ground. One ball had just been launched when the strike hit, charging it mid-flight. What would have been a lazy arc turned into a missile, superheated, electrified, and moving at over 100 miles an hour. It veered into the crowd. It connected with a man's head. The impact split his skull, while the lightning's current coursed through him, frying nerves, boiling blood vessels, and bursting tissue like an overstuffed balloon. Witnesses described it as an explosion more than a strike. Hair on end, skin blackened in patches, the man twitching as smoke curled off his clothes. Others nearby weren't spared. A golfer holding a metal club took a partial strike, the current blasting through the shaft and throwing him backward. His hands blistered instantly, palms seared to raw flesh. By the time paramedics arrived, the driving range was chaos. Golf bags scattered, balls still rolling across the grass, and one man lying motionless with a cratered wound where the ball had struck. If you've made it this far, congrats. You've just survived a tour through some of the weirdest, nastiest, and downright freak accidents humanity has cooked up. That's all I've got for today. So maybe keep an eye on your ceiling planters, don't get too friendly with truck tires, and if the sky starts crackling while you're golfing, maybe just head inside. Stay safe out there.